Alright, howdy. I thought today I'm gonna start with a reaction video. Um, we already know who it's from, but if you don't know, it's Legendary Drops. I'm finding myself watching more and more of this guy's content. I think, like, as far as like gaming goes, we think the same way. This is about how the East, basically overseas, if you're not American, how the West is like losing uh the market in video games, and we'll see what I say. I got my own opinion in this, and I'm gonna share throughout the video. So here we go. Let's get into it.
I need you guys to make sure that I'm not losing my mind, that I'm not seeing things, because from my perspective, it looks like all the games the players are the most excited for, the ones that they're enjoying the most, the ones that they're talking about the most, the games that have been the most successful outside of a couple of outliers. I'm not saying that it's all of them, but they're all coming from the East. Elden Ring, Pal World, Tears of the Kingdom, Armored Core 6, Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, Black Myth Wukong, Space Marine 2, Marvel Rivals, Final Fantasy, and I already know that I'm going to enjoy Stellar Blade once it releases on PC.
One sec. Let's do a test. I'll put this over here. All video games that were developed in the United States 2024. Alright, yeah, this doesn't work because that's not. These are literally companies that, yeah, I guess it's hard to, like, specify Western because, like, yeah, it doesn't really work. Oh well. Let's see what he has to say. I'll see if I can
I'm
find an
not
article.
saying that all Eastern games are great and all Western games are bad. No, there's a handful of good games in the West. Believe me, I put 400 hours into Baldur's Gate 3, but
Where's Larian Studios? God, I can't spell. I think it's. No. Where are they based? Oh wait. Yeah, they're in Belgium.
with that said, the list is very short on the Western side of things. And I think this is something that the vast majority of the industry doesn't want to discuss, especially games media, because, well, it means that they're losing relevance. Western games are losing relevance by extension. Western media then loses its relevance as well. There's been a cultural shift over the years where players are not being prioritized, but these Eastern studios are prioritizing those audiences. And as a result, because that cultural shift doesn't happen over there, well, they're taking advantage of a situation and they are skyrocketing in popularity. They're gaining more players, they're gaining more influence, and more importantly, they're gaining more money, which makes them a major threat to the rest of the industry. We're talking about heading towards a world that has a heck of a lot more Black Myths and Marvel Rivals and a lot less Dragon Age the Veilguard and Concords.
I don't know if I want to get into it this early. Screw it, I'll give it a little tidbit. I think what the problem is, and this goes deeper than just political, where do you think what or whatever. Creative writing is being hindered in the West more than it is in the East. I wouldn't say East you have total creative freedom, but I think we're getting to the point where you have more creative freedom than we do in the West, which is crazy because we have freedom of expression, where we can write or create something that probably couldn't be created in like China or whatever, and it's it's hindering us to a point where it's making us even dumber, if that makes sense. Like creativity isn't explored enough, I feel, and it's not even just like the developers or game developers or whatever. It's the corporations. I can't speak. I'm tired. Um, it's like companies like EA, Ubisoft, like all these AAA titles don't want to pull the trigger on a new something fresh. So what did they do? They do the 5v5 hero shooters. They do sports games that they've been making. They do a Call of Duty every year. They do. I don't think there would be a Fortnite clone, but I mean, battle royales are still popular. I don't think they're as popular as they used to be, but they're still popular. Basically, there's a formula, and these companies will just constantly use the formula instead of trying to create something new. And also, it comes with a risk and like money and shareholders and blah blah blah. But also, I think just creatively that a lot of people are being hindered because they're afraid of taking that leap. I'll get into
It's
it more
not good
if he
for a lot
talks
of
about it.
people in this industry. I'll tell you that right now because, well, as these Eastern studios continue to be successful, as they're able to produce way more games than a lot of these Western studios because of the financial position many of them are in, well, their investors are going to turn around and ask them, why aren't you doing that? They're going to say,
See, everything always comes back to investors. It's That's why, like, in my opinion, like, I don't really support AAA titles that much anymore. Like, I used to always buy day ones or pre-orders. I always used to do it for games I was anticipating. But I think ever since after Cyberpunk, I don't think I've ever bought a game outright day one. Even Baldur's Gate 3, when I waited at least a month, and I was like, you know what, I'll try it, and I fell in love with it. So I mean, it works, but like it's hard because like I feel like we're paying to be game testers most of the times for these companies. Like the game doesn't become good or great until like a year after. It's like, why even bother putting it out? And you chart and then the whole argument of like making games more expensive, and it's so stupid. It's like I don't want to get into it. Let's just say I think shareholders are hurting companies more than anything. Not politics, like workplace politics or DEI. I mean that contributes, but I don't think it's the main like cause of what the downshift.
well, we can't. But before we get into that, Monster Hunter Wilds is right around the corner, and with it is coming some of the craziest PC specs I've ever seen required. So you guys could use today's sponsor, Starforge. I've been loving my new myself, and they've got full and just queries that are or an enthused, incredible anime like design, premium or the description between games made in the East and those made in the West. And I found myself enjoying more Eastern games more and more, and I know that I'm not alone. You don't have to look that hard to see the difference. Eastern games are thriving while Western titles are drowning in complaints, controversy, and creative stagnation. These studios and publishers get it. Culturally, they get it.
Yeah, like almost I don't know why, but like for me, when it comes to a company and you're working for a company, when you're on social media and you're using your company's tag, so like you work at Ubisoft and you use a Ubisoft tag in your name or whatever, and you are making a political statement, right or left, it doesn't matter. You're making a political statement. you are then, for other people seeing that, they are thinking, oh, so this is what this company stands for then. And you're hurting not just yourself, but you're hurting the company. And like, it's fine to express your beliefs and whatever, but don't use the company or like professionalism is supposed to be like a main thing for people to have when you work for a big tech or a big company or wherever. And I feel like that's not a thing anymore. Like people are so dependent on social media now. It is so crazy. And so many people argue. It's crazy. It is crazy.
They understand what players want, and they're delivering it without compromise. I boot up Monster Hunter, Black Myth Wukong, Final Fantasy 16, and if you
I can't wait for Monster Hunter though. I don't know if I'll buy it day one. I'll probably wait another month to see if they continue putting content. But I love Monster Hunter.
feels like peak is the only thing that they care
Also,
about.
they're probably gonna be nerfing and buffing a lot of stuff. So it's like those types of games. It's good just to wait a little bit.
They want you to experience something that is unforgettable. They want you to be blown away by the scale, spectacle, and raw excitement. I'm tracking down monsters and I'm fighting them and crafting armor out of their bones in Monster Hunter. Their developers painstakingly research ecology to make sure that they can create a realistic ecosystem that feels alive, while at the exact same time, they're not making that their only priority. They're also delivering stylized combat that you'd only find in anime. I'm walking through China's cultural history, experiencing one of the oldest stories ever told, and fighting literal gods in Black Myth Wukong. I'm experiencing political upheaval and a world-ending crisis in Final Fantasy 16, but every moment builds to something bigger. The stakes, the music, the sheer unrelenting spectacle. I go from trying to find the truth to fighting a dragon.
I never really played any of the Final Fantasies, so like watching Final Fantasies, like just clip its or whatever, I'm just so lost always. I never understand.
In space that is about to unleash a laser to destroy the world. Then we look at games like Ninja Gaiden, Resident Evil, Stellar Blade, an entire industry of gacha juggernauts unapologetically delivering cool, badass, and attractive characters. These studios are not afraid to...
Like, I'm gonna see if I can find an example of what I think would make a good comeback. I think her name was Ruby. Not Ruby Rose. Shooting game. What the hell? Wet, that's it. This game. This is what we need back. I don't know if y'all played this, but it's like a Max Payne. It's like that type of like slow mode, like diving through stuff. But this character was so good as a female character, like so good. I don't know why they don't make more characters like this. Like, you can choose the badass route and the attractive route, and you can blend them. Like, there's so many good examples. And I don't know why, like, they're afraid to make attractive characters, male and female. Like, it's so stupid.
Give players what they want.
It's like you're wanting people to stare, like, 40-plus hours in your game, but you make the character not look unimpelling, like, look ugly, but, like, there's nothing there. Like, they look basic or bland, like a generic person.
Whether it's over-the-top action, ultra-stylized designs, or characters that are as powerful as they are attractive. Western games, well, they've been moving in the opposite direction. The androgynous, desaturated, corporate safe...
I don't really have an opinion about Dragon Age because the only Dragon Age I played was Inquisition, and even then I thought it was mid at best. I did like the music, but other than that, like I didn't really care for the franchise.
designs that
So
plague Western titles.
I know a lot of people hated the Vilgard and said it was some woke stuff, but like I couldn't. I don't really have an opinion on it. Never really liked the franchise to begin with. Wasn't my cup of tea.
Nobody's asking for that. Certainly not the players, certainly not women. I see countless 2B cosplayers, but I haven't seen a single person willingly dressing up as Abby from The Last of Us Part 2. So I guess we might see some Concord cosplays this year. But it's not just the aesthetics, it's the priorities. Eastern Studios are focusing on the player experience. It seems like the only thing they actually care about. They're not obsessing over realistic sweat physics in a first-person shooter. They're making sure that the controls feel incredible. They're not wasting time on irrelevant tech demos. They're refining gameplay mechanics to perfection. They aren't ballooning their budgets to insane proportions for the most useless things. They aren't trying to be Hollywood.
I do think the most useless budget to spend like most of your budget on is game trailers and CGI stuff. Like I don't know why game trailers like this is why I don't like watching movie trailers either, because most of the times watching a movie trailer spoils the movie for you. Same with game trailers. Like the only good ones are like when it has nothing to do with a video game. So like Dead Island, the scene where the little girl is getting chased by zombies and is running to the dad and is playing in slow mode and playing in a reverse and then going in time and it's like bouncing back and forth. That was such a good trailer. It's a zombie game. I get it. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know the story. I want to figure out the story when I'm playing the game, not watching a trailer. Like stuff like that. Like I want to know how much an average company will spend on game trailers and CGI stuff. I really want to know.
Hollywood, they're trying to be video games. I've been replaying Armored Core 6, and it's one of the most visually stunning games that I've played. But here's the thing, it's not chasing photorealism. It's designed in a way that tricks you to feel like it is. You're so immersed in the gameplay, so locked into the experience that you don't care about environmental destruction or ray trace reflections because the game is so damn good that you don't need those things. Then I go back to Western AAA games, and what do I get? A checklist simulator or a tutorial that assumes that I've never touched a controller before?
Yeah, I don't know why, but a lot of games are like that now. Like they teach you like you never play video. I think that's also because I think 2020 had a huge upsell in video game market with people that probably never touched a video game in their life, and so it's trying to cater to them. But I'm guaranteeing most people that picked up gaming after COVID probably have dropped it or moved on. Mostly because what gaming is now, which seems to be getting more and more expensive, is stupid.
Before a protagonist that will not shut up, constantly telling me what to think and what to feel. A game world that exists only to make a point, not to be explored. And their obsession with open world bloat, because why make a game feel big when you can make it look big? Western developers want to force you through a message. Eastern developers want you to lose yourself in the experience. They aren't holding your hands through a painfully self-important narrative filled with stiff, corporate safe writing.
I don't, not to interrupt them, but I don't mind open world games. I only mind when the open world has nothing to do. So it's like, for example, Witcher 3 does it pretty well. Skyrim does it somewhat well. Let's see what else. Trying to think. Fallout does it well. Metro, whichever one it was called, the most recent one, that one did it well. Stalker does it well. Actually, Stalker 2 didn't do it that well. I think there's probably more that do it well. It's just when you make an open world game and it takes like 15 minutes to have an interaction, that's probably when you probably need to go back to the drawing board. I ain't saying you gotta have it every like 10 seconds. There needs to be a new interaction, but you have to like justify the time to travel in your game.
They're letting you engage with a world that feels alive. Eastern games are just built different. That's why they are dominating,
They
and
are.
that's why they're going to continue to dominate. It's going to make it harder
I think they're on the rise. I don't think they're dominating. I know like Power World and Black Myth Wukong. I'm trying to think what else that was major. Like those are like rarities, I feel. But I do feel like slowly when we lose more of our creative freedom, we'll start seeing a rise in the Eastern market becoming more. I mean, I've watched anime. I started like I want to say in 2022, and now I watch mainly anime more than I do like any TV show or like Western media. Like that's about it. The only thing I watch is YouTube and anime. That's about it.
and harder for a lot of these Western studios to be able to stay relevant. Now, Japanese games being popular isn't anything new. In many ways, Japan is what built the foundation of modern gaming. If it wasn't for Nintendo dragging the industry out of the gutter
True.
in 1983, well, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. But
It is
we're
true.
not just talking about Japan. It's China, it's Korea, and beyond. Apparently, nobody took notice that 2024 featured an entire wave of Eastern studios stepping into the AAA space, shaking up the industry, and forcing Western studios to confront the reality that they're not the only game in town anymore. And I noticed this shift when I saw historically mobile studios start to step up into the AAA premium game space. Take Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. This was a game by Cygames, a studio known for gacha games like Grand Blue Fantasy and Shadowverse. Why would they suddenly decide
This does not look good to me. I don't know why. This just doesn't look good to me. This is like a weird Genshin Impact slash Monster Hunter clone, but mobile game.
to make a AAA, full production, full priced game unless they knew it was a smart
I
investment?
mean, I play Withering Waves, so like I play the gacha games. So like I can't really say anything.
Unless they saw an area of opportunity. Turns out they did, because Grand Blue Fantasy Relink sold 1 million copies in just 11 days, and it has still continued to sell, and the players loved it. Then it happened again with Stellar Blade. Shift Up, another gacha-focused studio, jumped into AAA gaming, and the result? Another massive success. A game that sold over 1 million
I
copies.
can't wait to
It's
play
likely
that on PC. I'm probably gonna play that on PC.
outsell its PlayStation numbers entirely once it actually launches on PC. Modders are going to have a field day with this one. Then a first-time Chinese studio delivers a AAA cultural masterpiece in Black Myth Wukong, a game that shattered
20
Steam's
million.
concurrent player records and sold 20 million copies in 1 month. It was bold,
That
visually
was
stunning,
wild.
deeply rooted in mythology, blending diverse storytelling techniques and cinematic cutscenes, and had exhilarating combat that just kept you hooked. Its tight linear progression and light yet meaningful customization stripped away any necessary bloat. It just offered a pure, content-rich experience that pulled you in and refused to let you go. And who could forget Pal World, allegedly made for under $7 million, reaching 25 million players with 15 million copies sold on Steam.
Until Nintendo killed it with their stupid patents, and now they're trying to push it in the Western market, try to sue them for more patents infringements. It's so stupid. I feel bad for Power World. Power World, like, yeah, you could say, oh, they copied character, but they at least made a Pokemon game. Because the Pokemon games that I've seen, they look nothing like this. This put Pokemon, in my opinion, back on the map. To say, hey, you're not the only ones that can make a monster capture type game.
A game that crystallizes just about everything players have been asking for, what they've wanted, the freedom that they've wanted. Finally, we saw the release of Marvel Rivals, storming onto the scene with stylized characters, great gameplay, killer performance, non-intrusive monetization, and overall just a fun experience for players.
I stopped
that helped
playing
the game reach
Marvel.
over 600.
I play Street Nova, as you know. That's the only hero shooter I play. And the thing is with Street Nova, there's 4 game modes. You have 3v3. You have TDM, which is 6v6. Then you have Escort, which is basically what this is, where you just keep a thing going down. Then you have Demolition, which is like CSGO and Valorant clone mixed together. So it's like 4 games, so it's different. If I'm feeling like a CS:GO clone, I'll play Street Nova Demolition. If I feel like a 3v3, which is mostly what I play, I'll play Street Nova 3v3s.
1,000
It's
concurrent
just what I
players
do
on
now.
Steam with over 20 million downloads across all platforms. With the success of these games, the shift is undeniable and it's not slowing down. 2025 is already shaping up to be another massive year for Eastern developers. Monster Hunter Wilds is going to explode, potentially breaking over 1 million concurrent players on Steam. I could easily see it. I mean, Monster Hunter World, quintupled engagement across the entire franchise.
Yeah, I think that's the one I played. It's Rise or World? Or not, yeah, it was this one because it's the Iceborne.
So there's no telling how far this new entry can go. Players are already excited for Phantom Blade Zero, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, Light of Motrium, and Tides of Annihilation, all made
Never
by
heard of
Chinese
these.
studios stepping up to steal the show. And after seeing all these successes and the engagement that I'm seeing from the players, how excited people are for some of these games that are coming out, I think that Eastern studios have figured out what Western gaming has refused to accept. That the layoffs, the cancellations, the flops aren't because gaming is dying. Players aren't leaving games, they're leaving Western games.
Yeah.
They're seeing an industry that's at war with its own audience. They see the greed.
Yeah, it's greed and political war when there really doesn't need to be. Like, in my opinion, politics need to stay out of social, not social media, entertainment. It's fine if you're on the news and you're looking for it, but it shouldn't be in movies, TV shows, unless that's made for it. So if it's like a political movie or whatever, and that I can allow that. But if it's like the new I don't know, new Marvel, and it's literally a new hero that they're introducing, but it's something political, it's like, ugh, I don't even want to bother. Doesn't matter if it's right or left. All of it just needs to stay out of the entertainment industry. Because all you're doing is alienating certain types. So if you're a right-wing gamer and the studio is pushing left-wing propaganda to you, well, you're probably not going to play it. And then vice versa. If it's a right-wing game studio, you're a left-wing person, you're probably not going to buy that product. So you're already alienating someone because of their political beliefs. It's so stupid. That's why I think creative storytelling is so important, and why companies need to do more with promoting that instead of just trying to grab as much money as they can from like another hero shooter or whatever.
The arrogance and the creative bankruptcy, and they're stepping in to, well, take what Western studios have abandoned. And I think that the industry is threatened by this, and they should be, to be honest with you. I mean, look at the way that games media reacted to some of these releases, because while Stellar Blade reviewed relatively well, it wasn't without controversy. Heck,
I mean, to be honest, gaming journalists, I think all of them, like, I don't think any of them are good anymore. I think most people get their, like, gaming journalism from content creators. I just think that's true.
Actually had to write an article to tell everybody, why is Stellar Blade so controversial? Are attractive characters unrealistic? Female beauty standards in gaming need to evolve. I'm sorry, but saying that beauty standards need to evolve is like saying that gravity needs to be more inclusive. You can try to change reality all you want, but people will always be drawn to what they find appealing. That's it. And then came Black Myth Wukong, and that's what they absolutely lost it. Developers not responding to the accusations that they made up, not responding to their headquarters being vandalized because of the accusations they made, not answering questions about inclusivity in a game about a monkey. That's when it became painfully clear. The industry is terrified of these rising Korean and Chinese studios because they can't control them, so they attack them instead. The only controversy...
Yeah, that they can't control them with their beliefs because they're a foreign nation that doesn't have the same beliefs.
Surrounding these games was fabricated by media outlets desperately trying to reinforce their own narrative and their own worldviews. And it became laughably obvious once reviews started rolling in for Black Myth Wukong, with multiple critics slamming the game for a lack of female characters and diversity, not realizing that women played a key role Act 3 and beyond. I brought this up before. I think I showed it off in one of my last videos, but it still blows my mind that Inverse would straight up call anyone who bought the game Chinese nationalists and anti-woke. Let that sink in. Look how detached from reality media has become. Fun action game, no political messaging, monkey with the big stick go bonk. Yeah, that's fascist. This is about an industry that is panicking. Western publishers and media have spent the last decade trying to dictate what players should want, and now it's backfiring. Eastern studios aren't arguing with their audience. They're just giving them what they want. Hell, I just saw that Marvel Rivals had planned to do mid-season rank resets. The players said no, and Marvel Rivals just said, oh, okay, that's fine. I think that's what a lot of the industry has gotten away from. Not what games should be about, not what games should...
At least you know it's a good studio is when they actually listen to their fan bases. Like, they'll think of a concept to be like, hey, we want to push this. What do y'all think? They say no. Okay, well then let's scrap it. Let's think of something else, or let's change this so it makes it better a little bit. Like stuff like that. Like love them or hate them. The only people who've ever responded to me on social media or just in general is Tripwire. Tripwire from they make Killing Floor. I literally just said, hey, Killing Floor 2. I love it, and they responded. They were like, thank you. These are devs from the game. It's like just interacting with a community is so important for studios to do. And I'm not talking about interacting negatively either. I'm talking about like being good and uplift, like not caring, but like you know what I mean.
But who games are for? Eastern studios, pretty much across the board, are just doing a better job at recognizing what players want and are giving it to them. That's what you need to do to succeed. A lot of Western developers and media are just so caught up in today's events and politics that they're forgetting that players are playing games to escape from that. Eastern games are thriving because they're not chasing trends or politics. They're chasing timeless experiences. They're crafting worlds that...
They're crafting stories that pull in a player. Something that is falling from our hands in the West. And I've already went through this multiple times in reaction channels and just live streams. You know my take on this.
Players want to revisit years from now, not just ones that are going to give you Twitter engagement for a few weeks before fading into irrelevance. Just the topical nature of Western games is already a death sentence. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, I played Borderlands 3 a few years ago, and the entire time I was playing it, I was like, dude, nobody's going to remember any of these pop culture references, any of these cringe jokes or anything like that because it was just so modern day. It was so...
Yeah, I heavily dislike the two bosses, the main bosses, evil villains. I hated them so much. I thought they were way too cringe with the whole live streaming stuff and being like, oh, no, we're content creators. It was so... And to be honest, the gameplay was even bad too. Like they didn't really change much from 2, which other than adding like the new characters. But other than that, like Beastmaster was probably the only good thing that came from the game, and maybe the Mech Girl.
Today for that game when it released, and I'm like, people aren't gonna remember this stuff. I was thinking about Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Do you think 20 years from now somebody's gonna pick up that game and go, it's about...
Don't know.
What are they even talking about in this?
Had 1.4
Eastern studios have just been so much, I think, 1 million consistent. Sales. They don't have any of that extra bullshit that's in there. We just see the normal complaints from them. I think that's another thing to think about as well. Free. When you think about some of these Eastern studios, the vast majority of controversy that surrounds them is the normal stuff. Day one performance, patches, expansion content, micro...
Yep. Seeing how much money they can get from their fan base. And the game's not even fully ready yet. Game testers, I'm telling you, that's what we are now.
Transactions. I want to go back to those days, man. I'm getting sick and tired of talking about some of these issues with some of these Western games. You don't see their developers, their mentally ill developers going on Twitter and having a meltdown to keep their politics and their opinions out of their games and out of the public eye, and they just focus on doing their job. They let their games do the talking instead. And oh man, their games are talking. You know, it's been a while since I've done a review. I need to do a review. I've been playing Armored Core 6 again, and it is insane how good that game is.
Never
it's
played.
just, it's absurd how good that game is and how little spotlight it got. The players that loved it, they loved it. The players that don't, haven't played it yet. it's so beautiful, but they don't do anything like trying to make sure that I can see my reflection in the visor of an enemy mech or anything like that. They don't waste a bunch of time and money and resources on all these weird fidelity things that just aren't necessary for a game like that. They just make it tight controls, incredible gameplay, really good story. Heck, it's one of the best stories that I've experienced in a game over the last few years, outside of a couple hours.
Let's see. I'm gonna exclude Baldur's Gate for this, but because I already know that's what I'm gonna pick for best story. I'm trying to think of a game in the past. I'll give 4 years. Past 4 years that has taken me. Other than Baldur's Gate. Man, this is hard. To be honest, most games with stories aren't that memorable. Even like Stalker 2. I didn't think it was nothing special. It felt like a Call of Duty mixed with Metro as a storyline. It was so dumb. I hated what they did with the Monolith. I did like them near the end that they brought them back to what Monolith used to be, but it was already too late for the game. Plus, with all the frame rate issues, man, the enemy, blah blah blah, whatever. But you can watch my rating on that. I have 2 videos on it.
Outliers, of course. There's some really good ones that are out there, but 90% of it was from text. Like, it was just a pop-up on screen and a voice, and that was it. No cutscenes or anything like that. It wasn't necessary. They didn't need that because they just focused on it being pure gameplay. And man, is it so good. That's what players want. That's what these Eastern studios have been delivering. No nonsense, all game.
One thing I want, this is my cry to the Western market. This is what we need back. I want, is it, who made this game? Yeah, I want Ace Combat dev team to make this. We need a Star Fox again. Let's see, last game. What was the last game? 2017. Wait, what? Oh, 95. Oh, that's not right. Anyway, they need this. The Star Fox games need to come back. I want to see like the play mechanics of Ace Combat, but with Star Fox.
Gameplay, give the players what they need.
I don't know who
That's
owns it.
That's why they've been
Nintendo
succeeding.
probably owns
That's
it.
why so many of these
Nintendo,
Western games
get on
have
it
been failing.
with your Switch 2.
Because, you know, I think they got comfortable. They had a stranglehold on the industry. They had more money, more developers, more resources, more experience. But now you have some of these studios that are popping up in some of these other countries that aren't under their influence. A lot of them are really inexperienced, but they got the people to be able to do it, and they're learning pretty quick. Developer tools, the barrier to entry to make a video game is way lower than it's ever been before, and that's a major threat for some of these companies. These companies that forgot how to treat us like customers. And it makes me...
I mean, you look at games like Belantro and Power World and like all these small studios or just made by one guy, and they're getting... Or Me-Side. Like all these like indie studios are made by one or two guys or girls or whatever. Like they're getting more attention in the news outlet and with people buying their games than most AAA companies now. Like I can't even remember last time I bought a Ubisoft title. It's been that long. I guess Siege. That would probably be the only game that I bought.
I was wondering why Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade had this weird, like, anti-Asian, anti-Chinese rhetoric among games media in a lot of different circles. I mean, like, they had the one person that said, if you bought the game, or the people that made the game successful were Chinese nationalists and the anti-woke. The reason why they say that is because it's meant to sound evil. It's meant to be disparaging.
Yeah, fear
These
mongering.
countries have a culture that's counter to theirs. They can't let that stand.
It's like all the people that were when TikTok was shutting down, they went to Red Note, thinking it was going to be the same thing. I thought that was wild.
Studios aren't just a threat because they counter their culture. They're not just a threat because of the fact that, well, their games are delivering what players want. They're a threat because they have something that the rest of the industry is going to have a real hard time with. They can make games far cheaper and far faster than anybody else in the entire industry.
That's also because of their work culture. It's very bad. Like, Japan's work culture is so bad. It is horrible. It's almost borderline slavery. It is horrible. If you can go watch like documentaries and stuff on it. They also have a bad drinking problem also because of it.
That's going to be a big problem, because as they create more games and they overwhelm the rest of the industry, well, the rest of the industry is not going to be competing with them. They're going to be swallowed by them. Now, the rise of Eastern studios isn't just a trend, it's a foundational shift in the industry. What we're seeing right now isn't just one or two breakout hits, it's an entire new wave of studios that's stepping out onto the global stage. And the scary part is, for Western developers, they're only going to get better. Most of these companies are still in their infancy, yet they're already disrupting the market. Game Science, as an example, the developers of Black Myth Wukong, had never made a AAA game before, yet they produced a title that sold 20 million copies for only $43 million. Given the average salaries of Shift-Up employees, Stellar Blade cost an estimate between $40 to $50 million. Now imagine what these studios can do once they gain some more experience, more funding, and a deeper understanding of the global market. Unlike many of these Western AAA studios, which have been floundering despite decades of experience, these new developers aren't starting with bad habits. They're building up from a lean, focused, and player-driven approach. One of the biggest advantages for a lot of these Eastern studios is just cost efficiency. The Western gaming industry is drowning in ballooning development costs, with AAA games exceeding 200.
Yeah, I think there's a problem with how much like games are costing to make, and then when they get released, that they're so bad, and you're like, oh, how did this cost $100 million to make? I think someone with like 12 people could probably make this better.
To $500 million budgets. We're seeing longer development cycles, higher failure rates, and lower margins, yet somehow these guys keep spending and inflating their budgets even more instead of actually refining their gameplay. In contrast, Eastern studios are operating on a fraction of the cost, yet delivering polished, high-quality games that rival or surpass that of their Western counterparts. And I think the reasons for this are pretty straightforward. They have a focused design philosophy. Eastern studios are prioritizing gameplay first rather than overproduced cinematics and unnecessary bloat. Their teams are more efficient. They're not building massive bloated...
But like you said, also, is it's back and forth. Like, there's some Western studios that are still good, but like I said, creativity is slowly losing its grasp in the West. And we need. I don't think we need like a new innovation or a new idea to pop off just yet. But creative writing needs to definitely improve again. Like, we need another good story like Red Dead 2, or like we need a good story again from a video game.
Development teams that take years to onboard and years to manage. Their production is more disciplined without the need for endless games as a service monetization models. They're just focused on delivering a complete experience. And what's really scary for a lot of these Western publishers is that not only are these Eastern studios going to get better at their jobs, they're going to get more efficient over time. There's no denying that in some of these Eastern countries that they have lax labor laws that allow for faster, more demanding work cycles. It's not a good thing from an ethical standpoint,
yes,
but it's an advantage when it comes to pure production output. Beyond that, something else that works to their favor is that workplace culture in many of these Eastern studios rejects the Western industry's obsession with toxic positivity. The idea that all work must be praised, all criticism must be soft. And
I think for me that's worse. Like I don't want someone praising me constantly 24/7 cuz then it just makes me feel like it's forced. Like I want them to see what I'm doing and then like they'll be like, "Hey, you're doing good. Keep it up." Like stuff like that. I don't mind. But don't constantly keep coming up to me like, "Oh, you're so good. You did so well." Blah, blah, blah. Like stop.
Nobody can ever be called out for doing a bad job because in Eastern Studios, criticism is direct and result driven. If you mess up, you're told directly. There's no hand
Yeah.
holding, no excuses, no performative social media
I would
activism.
want
Employees
someone
are
to tell me
expected
if
to
I mess up on
improve. Bad
something.
work doesn't just get a pass because it aligns with corporate social agendas. The game is always the priority. Personal beliefs and cultural narratives don't override the responsibility to deliver a great product. Compare this to the West, where some developers are spending more time policing their communities rather than making better games. You've got studios that are hiring based on ideological alignment rather than skill, fearful of offending social media mobs, and constantly engaging in PR firefighting rather than focusing on making something great. Eastern developers don't have that problem. There's another huge advantage that these Chinese studios have in particular, and it's access to one of the largest gaming markets on the planet, while Western studios don't. Many Western AAA games don't release in China due to strict censorship laws or a lack of appeal to Chinese audiences. That artificially handicaps Western studios, while Chinese studios have no problem releasing their games both domestically and internationally. Look at Black Myth Wukong. 75% of its sales came from China alone, yet it still pulled in millions of Western players. Now imagine what happens when a Chinese studio makes a game that's even better, with higher global appeal, and also at less than half of the development cost of a Western AAA game. That's where things get really dangerous for Western developers. These developers aren't just a threat because they're making games that players want, they're a threat because they're only going to get better at it. They're going to get more experience, they're going to get more funding, they're going to learn from their mistakes, they're going to make games faster, and they're going to make them cheaper. Western studios can barely keep up as is, and they're already at a financial disadvantage. The fact that Eastern studios can produce high-quality games at a fraction of the cost and twice as fast is likely going to create an entire industry shakeup. If a Western studio needs $300 million in 6 years to make a game, but an Eastern studio can do it for $50 million and in half the time, who do you think is going to win in the long run? While many may see this as spelling doom for the industry as we know it, I see it as a rebirth and potentially the start of something greater.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's whichever one captures more of its player base at this point. I think the reason why gaming is so good, in my opinion, is because gaming doesn't have a border, if that makes sense. Like there's no ocean, no wall, no like land that's dividing gaming. Like anyone can pick up a video game and play it. Now, depending where you live, it might be harder than some other places, but you can play gaming almost about anywhere now.
Bigger
And it's just different than compared to other stuff.
Western studios will be forced to do better, to be better. They'll have to be smarter with their spending, focus on the right things, and going back to paying attention to the audience and meeting the needs that aren't met. Sure, some studios are going to get caught in the undertow, but many studios are going to restructure and reprioritize, and with the rise of some of these Eastern studios, it's going to come new perspectives on how to make games, how to create new genres, and how to create customer satisfaction. You know, one of the things I brought up in my review of Black Myth Wukong was how appreciative I was of being able to learn more about Chinese culture. A lot of people outside of China have little to no context on its legends, history, and mythology. Many Western audiences just have a surface level understanding at best, vague concepts like the Great Wall, dynasties, and martial arts.
Yeah, I like learning mythologies like Greek, Roman, stuff like that. I think those are always fascinating to learn. I don't think I believe in them, but it's still interesting to learn about stuff like that.
Games have the power
And
to
all these like philosophers and stuff.
change that. Black Myth Wukong wasn't just a game, it was a bridge. It introduced millions of players to a rich cultural history that they may have not have explored otherwise. And this is where things get really interesting for me, because while exposure to new cultures through art can be a beautiful thing, China's gaming industry isn't just any industry. It operates under the watchful eye of its government. And that comes with baggage. No references to Taiwan, Tibet, Tiananmen Square, no sensitive religious or political imagery, no blood, suggestive themes, or excessive brutality. This isn't just speculation. Western companies have already censored themselves to stay in the Chinese market. Blizzard suspended a Hearthstone player for supporting the Hong Kong protests. Hollywood studios regularly edit their films to appease Chinese censorship.
Mm-hmm.
NBA teams scrambled to apologize after comments supporting Hong Kong went viral. Hell, there's a ton of things that you can't even say in Marvel Rivals in-game chat. I know a lot of people are going to have concerns about China's growing influence in the gaming industry. We're all aware of Chinese censorship, propaganda, and soft power strategies, so it's understandable to wonder whether gaming is going to face that same fate. But call me an idealist, I think that China's success in gaming might actually lead to a crack in that armor. We're already starting to see signs of that shift because Black Myth Wukong, while the game was toned down in China, in its Western release, it still featured intense action, blood effects, and darker themes. This suggests that Chinese developers, when targeting a global market, are prioritizing Western audiences' expectations over domestic restrictions. If they want games to sell worldwide, they can't afford to be completely sanitized. The more success they find outside of China, the more likely these studios are to push back against censorship, or at the very least, create separate versions for those games to appeal to broader audiences. And this is what makes the future of Chinese gaming so fascinating to me, because as their industry grows internationally, the pressure to loosen creative restrictions is only going to increase. Right now, China's biggest weakness in this market is its own government-imposed limitations on creative expression. If their developers want to compete at the highest level, they have two choices: either ease censorship to stand alongside Western and Japanese studios, or remain shackled by their government oversight, preventing them from ever reaching their full potential. For all the concerns about censorship, market influence, and industry shifts, there's something undeniably exciting about what's happening. Gaming is evolving in a way that we never could have predicted, and at the center of it all, well, we're witnessing a genuine cultural shift. One that could reshape not only the industry, but the way that people from vastly different backgrounds engage with one another. People love to dismiss gaming as a pastime, but in reality, it's one of the fastest growing industries in the world. It's already overtaken movies, television, and music, and not just in revenue, but
I don't think it's a pastime anymore. I think it's a hobby for some, and some it's a career. It's grown that much to where people can make a living off of gaming now. Whether you're making video games, selling content, live streaming it, being a YouTuber, like stuff like that. The gaming market has changed drastically in like 10 years.
As a cultural influence. And
Even
with that
20
influence
years.
comes power, the power to bridge gaps, to change perceptions, and to connect people in a way that no other medium can. This industry is changing, and as a result, we're going to get better games. We're going to get a lot more games.
I think we're going to get some bad games for a while, and then there'll be that switch. It could be months, it could be years, who knows. But I know there's going to be that switch that switches the market back on to be like, yo, we need to start making actual good storytelling, story-driven games.
To see new ideas, fresh perspectives, and experiences, and at the end of the day, that's all we've been asking for. Wouldn't it be wild if gaming, not politics, not diplomacy, not think pieces from self-important journalists, was the thing that actually brought us all together? A shared love for immersive worlds, incredible storytelling, and fantastic games.
I think we still have that in a way. Yeah, there's some people that argue over gaming takes, but like I think most gamers, even if it like you like the toxicity in some games, like most gamers rather would deal with toxicity in like shooters or whatever than deal with a gaming journalist like bringing real life politics into a video game space that probably has nothing to do with it. That's just my opinion, though.
That was the thing that made us see eye to eye. If art, not ideology, was the thing that actually brought us together. Deep. I know. It's the last time that you guys are going to get anything positive from me for at least a few months. Starting now. See, this is the reason why I was so upset that these studios never got a fair shake from Western journalists. It bothered the hell out of me because I viewed this as a reawakening. I viewed this as a second chance for the industry to get itself back on track, because I think that's exactly what we're going to see. We're going to see games going back to doing what they used to do before, which is connecting people, which is delivering an experience that customers are looking forward to, helping us escape from the world and all of the bullshit that's around us. And honestly, There's so many good things that can come from this. I feel like I've only scratched the surface of some of it. If you think about it on a much broader scale, if you have all these companies that are out there, all these Eastern studios, especially if we're looking at like China and stuff like that, they're going to be able to make games faster, cheaper. We're probably going to get games cheaper because they're going to flood the market.
Mm, I don't know about that because if, let's say, GTA does manage to sell for $100 or whatever, I think the Eastern companies are going to see that. And they're going to be like, oh, well, $50, $60 is fine. Well, why not 70? It, like, the moving of prices in video games is so stupid because, in my opinion, 60 should always been 60 if you're a AAA, 40 if you're under a AAA, and if you're an indie, like barely starting up, 15 to 25 max. Maybe even lower depending on what your game is. If you're like a one guy or just making this video game as a passion project or whatever. Because if you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reason, in my opinion. If you're trying to make an atmosphere or create a story, tap into the emotional side of the player or whatever, then you're doing it for the right reason. But if you're just doing it for the money and to please the shareholders or whatever, that's when you know you're doing it wrong. And I got a feeling that's what we're doing in the West a lot more of than compared to the East.
Good. And if these games are good, that's even better because if they're flooding they're flooding the market with good games. What ends up happening is, well, supply goes up, demand is down. The prices are going to have to come down to meet the demand. We're going to see less microtransactions or cheaper microtransactions, I would hope. We're going to see game prices fall a little bit. We're going to see some of these studios tighten their budgets, tighten their britches a little bit, and actually start spending money the right way on some of these games. There's a lot of good that can come from this. And the crazy thing is that we're only seeing the first wave of some of these games. They just announced the Tides of Annihilation. I wrote that one down. That just came out of nowhere. And I think we're probably going to see more of those come out this year, more of those random announcements. Oh, hey, by the way, here's another game that looks wild out of nowhere with top tier quality. What is this? How does this even happen? And the next year is probably going to be even crazier. I'm blown away by it. Look at the sheer volume of Eastern games that just came out of nowhere last year, and then now they're doing it again this year. And they're probably going to multiply it by next year. I wouldn't doubt it, especially because they've seen how much money these games can make. Black Myth Wukong brought in a ton of money. Marvel Rivals is making a boatload of cash. Obviously, the gacha games that
I think the Marvel Rivals success is only because a lot of people are tired of Overwatch. That's the only reason. Like, if I think Overwatch was still popular, I don't think Marvel Rivals would have done as good. I mean, yeah, it would have hit the market for the superhero fans, but other than that, I don't think it would have done as well. But a lot of people were really tired of Overwatch. And it is also, a good, in my opinion, a better game than Overwatch. Almost every hero is somewhat on this same equal as power. Like, there's not one character that's like, oh, this character is overpowered. Whereas Overwatch, they're always nerfing and buffing, and it's like you have to play a meta. You have to follow the meta if you want to win. It's so stupid.
They have over there, MiHoYo is making a ton of money as well. So they see the opportunity in it. They're going to invest in it. And by extension, we're just going to get more games and likely better games because they're going to see, oh, well, games of this scale, games of this quality are what actually, sell. So that's what we're going to go ahead and make. Oh, the players like this thing, we're going to go make that. This kind of loops me back to this video that I'm planning on doing relatively soon about copycat games, where you're seeing some of these studios take premises or games that, well, other studios have that they may have not done a very good job with, or they haven't handled its success very well. Overwatch being a really good example of that. I also think that Light of Motrium game is probably going to be relatively disruptive. What if, just a what if scenario, the game that, Horizon's tried to come out so many times that it always ends up not doing very well, mostly because it always...
I want to know about this copycat video. Now I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of copycats that do somewhat well or better than its main.
Ends up dropping in the window of some major release right next to it or whatever it might be. I also just don't think people are really all that interested in Horizon. I don't really know why. I think the premise is really cool. Maybe it's just the character. Maybe it's PlayStation. I don't know what it is. Like, the players that like it, but on a broader scale, for a broader audience, the vast majority of people just aren't interested in that IP at all. But then you have this Light of Motrium.
Let's be real. The only thing PlayStation needs to do is Bloodborne. Whether they make another one or up it to PC, who cares? Bloodborne, I don't know why they have a hate boner for it. But Bloodborne. That's the only thing I care for PlayStation. I don't even own a PlayStation, but that's the only game I really care for PlayStation.
Same premise. Just throw in some Elden Ring-esque fighting mechanics and things like that. Throw in some...
I did watch the Elden Ring DLC, and in my opinion, it doesn't look that good. It looks mid at best.
Mounts and whatnot. And players are going to eat it up. There's something to that. We'll be talking about that soon. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video.
Night Rain. Good video. Give him some love. Subscribe to him. I have been watching more of his content. What I usually do when I'm doing reactions is, as you can see, I'll watch like a few minutes, and if I like the content, I don't know why the bar is that far. I got like right here. That's weird, but yeah, I usually watch like a few minutes, and then I put it in my watch later playlist, and then react to it. But I have been reacting more and more to his content. I'm thinking like me and him probably think the same way where it comes to like video games. We probably got the same taste somewhat. But other than that, I will see y'all later. Peace out to the next video.